Tifu by visiting Auschwitz while ill-informed. A few years ago my uncle invited my friend and myself along to a trip to Poland. He was planning on visiting Auschwitz I and Auschwitz-Birkenau. I said yes, because I felt it was important for me to learn about the details of what went on. I was still quite young and only learned more general information about the war and the camps, never really bothered to do my own research. You know how it goes. Let me set the scene a little here. The morning of had arrived and we were all ready to go. I was unsure of the weather, it was hot and humid, but it would likely rain later and cool down quite a bit. My friend looks at me and goes, "Are you gonna wear that?" And I say yes, thinking that this shirt is probably warm enough in case it does get colder, so I won't even need to bring a jacket. Alright then, off we go. We get to the first camp and the tour begins. It was fascinating and horrifying, but I suppose that is to be expected. As our group makes its way through the camp, I'm surprised by how much information is completely new to me, and how much worse it is than I'd initially learned. At some point we go into the building where they show the suitcases, shoes, hair, things like that. I think we're about half an hour, maybe more, into the tour, which would take a few hours total. I stay close by the tour guide so that I can hear him better. The guide then leads us into the room where they showcase the prisoner uniforms. It was at this point that I realized I fucked up. I'm standing next to the tour guide and the prisoner uniforms, absolutely mortified. The shirt I was wearing looked exactly like the prisoner uniforms. I had no idea that that was what my friend tried to warn me about. With bleached blonde hair and blue eyes to boot. When we get outside I ask why no one said anything before we left. My friend said she did, so she figured I knew and was trying to make some statement. Hadn't I ever seen the boy in the striped pajamas? I hadn't. Nor any other type of media that showed the uniforms or other details of prisoner life. Somehow I managed 18 or so years avoiding this specific detail that would come back to bite me. I was stuck feeling like an asshole for the rest of the day. TLDR, visited Auschwitz, accidentally cosplayed as a prisoner. Could have been worse. You could have accidentally cosplayed as a guard. I may be misremembering here, but I believe the referenced movie is Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I think people would be more focused on the location and the grueling history than your shirt. Don't worry about it. Are you gonna wear that? I hate shit like this. If I'm wearing something that isn't appropriate, fucking tell me that. Don't do this shit that sounds like just thinking someone has bad taste in clothes. For Christ's sakes. We're not expected to know all the details about historic events in the world or all the stuff that can offend people. Even if prisoner outfit for that era can be seen in movies about that topic, not everyone has seen it due to many factors. It's nothing to worry about. You're probably not the first person to do that. Your friend asked generally if you're gonna wear something and then thinks, she said something. Well, that really is not what I would have said. She at least could have said something that pointed to the problem. The way she said it could easily be understood as a comment on your taste. It's a blue and white striped shirt, right? Here's the thing. Stripes are incredibly common in fashion. Especially blue and white, which you'll see on sweaters and shirts from all sorts of armies and sailors. Black and white shirts are very common as well, also a commonly used pattern in prisons. I've also got bright orange shirts, same color the guys in Guantanamo Bay wear. I honestly don't see this as a particular fuck up. You clearly were not doing it to be offensive, and it's an honest mistake probably 100 people a year make when visiting the camp. Pretty positive people didn't notice or assumed you didn't realize. Unless you're legit wearing a Halloween costume, no one's gonna care. When I went there, the first thing I saw was two Japanese girls standing on the train tracks outside with the standard peace sign pose, all beaming, smiling and stuff. You're good. You're not the worst. My friend went to Auschwitz with his wife. They have a dark, morbid sense of humor. He walked up behind his wife, put his arms around her, whispered in her ear, "I'm so turned on right now." A woman turns around and gives him the most horrified look. Turns out it wasn't his wife, just a random woman with a similar haircut. Added a detail. I once wore a t-shirt that said hippity hoppity, death is on its way to a research facility with terminal cancer patients. You're not alone in wearing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Luckily for me, I have a dark sense of humor, and while the moment itself was mortifying, I now have a fun story to tell at parties. By the second paragraph I was instantly thinking, oh shit, Op has got a big black trench coat on. Much better to fuck up and learn from it than not fuck up and not learn from it. You've now got a fuller appreciation of what happened. I used to work for a company that builds and installs assembly lines and special machinery. All of us hates our uniforms. They were the cheapest ones that the company could get at the time, I am guessing, dark blue and light blue vertical stripes and dark blue pants. Company name and first name embroidered. We were returning home from a job in South Carolina and stopped at a Burger King in a more rural part of Georgia. We got all kinds of funny looks and customers were either getting up and leaving or finding the farthest tables from us. One of my coworkers went to one of the cashiers and asked her about it. Turns out that the local prison work detail prisoners wear the same uniforms. Jewish lady here, I think it's obvious it was accidental. It sounds like you were super respectful and paid attention and learned a lot. The only people I gave nasty glances to at Dachau were the ones taking selfies. Uck. You were there to learn, and you did. If that can make you feel better, I had no idea as well what an Auschwitz prisoner looks like. Just Googled it. At least when you got all nervous upon realization you didn't get hot and say it's hot as an oven in here, or, is it just me? You showed up, educated yourself, learned unequivocally it was real and it was horrific, and you didn't act a fool and weren't taking selfies. You did not F you. You did more than most people are willing to do. This Jew thanks you. If you or anyone else is interested, in middle school my class read Alicia, My Story by Alicia Appelman German, an autobiography written by a young Jewish girl who grew up while trying to survive the Holocaust. I highly recommend reading it. I am sorry, but here in Europe no one would have bat an eye tbh. We don't automatically assume someone means offense with stuff like that. The more you know. To be fair, I also wouldn't know exactly what the uniforms look like, and I'm in my early 30s. To be honest, the TLDR is the cherry on top of this one. I take it you're not European. I mean, prisoners' uniforms are a fickle detail that I can see being skipped in places where the Holocaust is not local history. It's a fuck up but excusable. This is why these tours exist. To remind people. To give them that information. Never be ashamed you learned. Some of the comments here are highly inappropriate. I went to middle school/high school a long time ago, but there were pictures in our history books, film footage, etc. Don't feel bad, op. Despite learning a lot about the Holocaust, I wouldn't have been able to recall what the outfits in camps look like either. For anyone who doesn't know or needs a refresher, this is the uniform. Were you wearing matching pants? Did your shirt have a yellow Star of David on it, or a pink triangle or red triangle? If not, you are fine, and you were probably the only one who noticed besides your friend. This reminds of the time I visited the atomic bomb memorial in Nagasaki and saw someone wearing a t-shirt with some kind of American patriotic imagery. I forget what it was exactly, might have been an American flag with the eagle, or something like that. I really hope that person had a similar FU situation where they didn't realize what they were wearing. Hey, at least you were there to learn. You don't need to feel bad. A few years ago there was a luxury clothing brand from Europe who released a collection resembling the uniform. If a company that big with that many people can miss things like this, one person learning history shouldn't be a problem. Edit, source. Relevant XKCD. As someone who has studied a lot about World War II, my grandfather was on the beach at Normandy on D-Day, I have to say I had not heard of the boy in the striped pajamas either, so I don't think you should feel bad about the shirt. You never know, maybe some thought you were trying to show support for the people who had to wear it. Offensive would have been wearing a swastika or an iron cross into it. It's likely the person who made the shirt didn't realize either. I went the day after a rave. Not the place for a come down. Well, at least you didn't wear something with SS on it. I couldn't recommend going there enough, even if you are very educated on it. Seeing the room with all the hair is harrowing. Guess your clothes had the same structure, with white background and black stripes, but to be honest, it's not really that kind of mistake like the girl that made a selfie in front of the gate and called it Holocaust. There's a difference, you did not intentionally that and you didn't made bad jokes for Instagram. I was homeschooled through middle school and Christian private school in high school. They covered the Holocaust in middle school at the private and high school at home. I had literally no idea anything about the Holocaust or had an idea of how important it was to learn about. I just started college and met my suitmate who was Jewish. We became friends and were thinking about getting matching stick and poke tattoos from the girl on the 4th floor. She couldn't decide what to get, so I was thinking of suggestions. I told her maybe you could get your dorm room number, or maybe the Jewish star. She stared at me for a couple minutes, Thankfully realized I was just completely innocently ignorant to what I had said, and began laughing uncontrollably. We watched a lot of documentaries together after that. If I'm ever in that part of the world, I don't know that I could go there. I think it'd make me puke, have a panic attack and wreck me for weeks or months. Important to learn, but I don't know if I could be in the spot it happened and seeing the remnants from it. Unbelievable what some humans are capable of. Could be worse. Could have worn a traditional ethnic Indian religious garment. One of my lady friends attempted to do that on a trip to Germany. A very expensive salwar got thrown in an airport trash can that day. Dude, don't sweat it. I have been to multiple camps and there is always someone who thinks the striped look is appropriate. You weren't to know, it's okay. I'm Jewish and I see this pattern on clothes sometimes in stores and I always shudder. I can't wear it. Not the pattern's fault, of course. Nazis ruined a lot, including patterns. This reminds me of when I was about 15 and my class went on a trip to the Holocaust Museum. We finished the tour and everyone was eating lunch in the park. Everything was pretty quiet and somber and I always hated silences and tried to lighten the mood by talking. I was an avid Doctor Who fan and made some reference to the Daleks, I think in reference to the trash cans, and was yelling exterminate. Once or twice until I saw horrified looks. I was very confused and people yelled at me not to joke about extermination and that I was an asshole. I was embarrassed but shut up. It wasn't until I got home that day and put two and two together and realized how awful it looked. Since the tour repeatedly used the words extermination etc., it still makes me cringe to this day, and I never said anything at school the next day since I thought it would make it worse, so people probably thought I was a racist ass for a while. What I took from this is you haven't seen Band of Brothers then. You should. I don't know if you fucked up. You were dressed as a prisoner and so anyone would have either made the assumption that you were dressed like that in solidarity with the prisoners or because you didn't know better. Nothing at all to be ashamed of, emo. Well, better dressed as a prisoner than a prison guard. At least you didn't do anything deliberately offensive while you had that shirt on, right? You really gonna tell us this story without including a picture of the offending shirt? My friend said she did. I mean, no, she didn't. I'd be pissed at her tbh. Can you post a picture of what your shirt looks like? Your friend is an asshole. Don't stress it. If it was just striped pattern, it's just a coincidence. Now if you had on some kind of Jewish star on the clothing, we'd have a different conversation. Someone did manufacture clothes like that a few years ago and was rightly pilloried. Ha ha ha, our school class went there many years ago. My extremely polite classmate had not been thinking straight as we got up that morning. He wore a Beatles shirt. With what song featured? Hey Jude. Perhaps you'd need some German knowledge, but still. When I visited, there was some clueless guy wearing a shirt with the word gas in huge letters across his chest. Apparently it's some Italian apparel brand. Trust me, you could have done way worse. Look at all the stupid selfies and pictures people take of themselves while visiting Auschwitz. This is unfortunate, but it seems you just didn't know otherwise. We could get angry, but it's a learning curve, and the fact you wanted to learn more is nothing to be ashamed of. Relieved face. Man, it really truly upsets me that so many people don't know many of the details about how horrifying the Holocaust was. I find it disgusting and we need to do better. I feel this. I accidentally walked all over the Netherlands with black boots and red laces, cause you know it looks cool. Ha ha, nope, turns out it's a neo-Nazi thing. I'm just glad I found this out when we got back to the States. I'm Jewish and appreciate that you visited the camp with an open mind and educated yourself. Inadvertent cosplaying as a prisoner is nothing to be embarrassed about. I could even understand doing that intentionally to facilitate internalizing a bit of what the victims went through. I bet you were happy you shaved off the toothbrush mustache beforehand though?